Welcome everybody, it's November 2017. I'm Dadhichi, and this month I wanted to start by apologising for not actually having the 12 individual star signs for the month of November. Before you shoot me, there's a good reason for it. I flew to Australia on the 10th of October, and as soon as I arrived, I believe I suffered a heart attack. So not knowing that, I just basically went through customs. I did feel a bit of shortness of breath. I hadn't slept all night on the flight. I had a bit of pressure in the chest. But, I just thought maybe a little bit of jet lag, lack of sleep. So I went through customs, got to the rental car and was pretty exhausted. So got in the car and just sat the seat back and slept for about 3 hours. I had planned to go to the doctor. I actually came to Australia to get a whole series of tests, which I normally do every year or two, but I was also mindful of the fact that my horoscope wasn't looking too good because, believe it or not, astrologers also have horoscopes and they have good and bad cycles. And it was clear to me for a couple of years that there was going to be some sort of medical intervention necessary at this point in time. So I thought, oh, look, I may as well come down, get all the tests. Had a feeling it might have been something in the lung or intestinal area. You see, we're not always 100% correct. But fortunately, I did come to Australia because when I went to see the doctor a couple of days later, he seemed to suspect that I could have some cardio trouble. So he organised an appointment with my specialist, who got some CAT scans done, and I was barely out of the place and I'd received a call from him saying, listen, drop everything, go to the emergency at the hospital, we're going to operate on you today. You might see a couple of, where are they? Couple of puncture marks there, 2 red marks there amongst all those freckles. Well, actually, I had 2 surgeries. The first one, they actually went up into the arm, into the heart via the artery. They puncture the artery, and then they balloon out the artery, which was apparently 99% blocked, and then they insert a stent. So it's all done while you're fully conscious. The procedure takes about an hour, so it's quite amazing how far medicine has come these days. So I got out the following day, and then it must have been a week later, I was just out and about, just had some lunch, and again started getting some severe pains in between my shoulder blades, and whisked myself up to the emergency of the nearest hospital, and it seemed to be a Groundhog Day. They went in again and put an additional 2 stents in my heart. So that's all good now. I'm starting to get better. I've been convalescing, starting to do a little bit of work, but I am quite a bit behind in my work, which is why I haven't been able to get down and do your individual reading, so I hope you will forgive me for that. It is sufficient to say that for each of the 12 star signs, I was going to continue talking about how Jupiter can be expansive, can be very, very positive, but here is a case in point, and if your Scorpios out there, Jupiter has just moved into the position of Scorpio in the Western Zodiac. Apparently loads of good luck, lots of good health. So as a Scorpio, I got to thinking, how does the Western astrological concept of Jupiter transiting into the sun sign equate with good luck when I just had a pretty close brush with death? In fact, my doctors were saying I was a walking dead man. So as I said, I was somewhat aware that there were going to be some problems, maybe some surgery, but I didn't really believe it was that life-threatening as it was. So I guess the thought I had was Scorpio is the natural significator of death and rebirth. And Jupiter being the expansive planet, transiting in this area would naturally amplify the significations of that particular star sign. And that seems to be the case. Now, if we look at the sign of Aries, then Scorpio is the 8th house, which has to do with shared resources, sexuality. But the inherent nature of Scorpio being that death, rebirth issue seems to indicate to me that any department of life for any of the star signs, so let's just take Aries, sexuality, that whole area in your life may be subject now to a complete renovation and overhaul. Your sensuality, your intimacy, the way you deal with the people you love in your life, the way you share your money. For Taurus, Scorpio is the 7th house. Again, this has to do with relationships, partnerships, and also the world at large. So your concept of the world will also be changing with that Jupiter moving into that 7th house. What you maybe previously thought was of value in a relationship will be dead and gone now, only to give way to some new concept of how a relationship is going to suit your specific needs at this time. Gemini, the 6th house, which is debts. Now, for you perhaps, and look, this is more of an experimental reading today, based upon my own experience recently, is to consider debts as being a negative thing, and the death of those debts being, I guess, the fulfillment of your obligations in that area and the possibility of moving into a better cash flow situation. Cancer, the position of Scorpio is the 5th sector to you, which is love affairs. So I'm just wondering, it's like blowing up a balloon. You expand a balloon and blowing it up too big, it explodes. So that could possibly be the way to describe your relationships now, especially if there are new relationships. Putting too much attention into them could result in those relationships, finishing their use-by date a lot quicker than you had expected. Leo, the 4th house, has to do with your domestic situation, that position of Jupiter transiting in this area of your horoscope. The 4th house is not just domestic, but it's got to do with your peace of mind, your inner health, your spiritual health to a large extent. So Jupiter's transit here does give a more expansive view of your inner nature, but it could also, given the interpretive approach I'm taking today, could possibly be such that what was giving you peace and satisfaction inwardly is no longer going to do that, and you're prepared to expand your view of that and to look further afield for things that are going to give you that inner fulfillment. Virgo, this is the 3rd house for you, expanding your mind, your intellect, in the way that you communicate with others. So Jupiter here could overinflate your opinion of things. And so therefore, how does that affect other people? If people don't like what you're saying, it could kill your friendships. It could make you overbearing. It could make your opinions come up at odds with others. So be careful of the way that you present your ideas, your ideologies, your philosophies and beliefs. Libra, this 2nd house is financial for you. So the sign of Scorpio and the movement of Jupiter in that area could have to do with blasting apart and through the methodologies of the way you earn, looking at new forms of income, especially with a couple of other planets there at the moment. So this is a reappraisal period for you, I think, given this approach to looking at Jupiter as pumping up the balloon till it explodes. Maybe you've been working too hard, excessively, trying to earn money, trying to keep up with the Joneses. So this cycle may put an end to that and help you to regulate your lifestyle and the way you do your work. Scorpio, we've just talked about that, given my experience, because Scorpio is the 1st house. It relates to the body. So it could be Jupiter's expansive influence pushes you too hard physically. You're trying to do too much, trying to achieve too much too soon. So take note of that, as I certainly have now. I'm going to be slowing things down a little. And I've decided to make a note of getting more than 4 hours sleep a night, which seems to have been the norm for me over the last 20 years. Definitely something that changes your body chemistry. For the sign of Sagittarius, your ruling planet in the 12th house is also a very spiritual place. So it can expand your spiritual ideals, but it will also affect your expenditures and could blow those expenditures right out of the water. So you've got to be careful how you pick and choose what it is you're going to spend on right now. Generosity is also indicated by the 12th house. So you're probably being a little over generous with your time and resources. Capricorn, the 11th house has to do with friendships. Again, following through on that thread. Giving too much attention to friends leads me to remind you of the old saying, familiarity breeds contempt. So, you know, becoming too friendly, spending too much time living in the pocket of your friends could see you finally come to a point where you've had enough of that, or they've had enough of you, and it's time to part ways. Aquarius, the 10th house is Scorpio for you, so this is your work. Similar advice that I've given to some of the other star signs, in that you need to be careful that you're not overdoing it, you're not overextending yourself in your your ambitious plans. Make sure that you balance your professional life against those of your personal relationships. That's important, because often we forget about the actual personal relationships, even though the motive for doing all of that hard work and for increasing our professional success is to give a better quality of life to the ones we love. But don't alienate them. Make sure that you've got balance in that area of your life. Pisces, of course, Jupiter is one of your ruling planets, and now moving in Scorpio, the 9th house. Journeys of a physical and also a spiritual nature are indicated by the transit of Jupiter in this area of your horoscope. So you'll be looking at ways of expanding your inner understanding. But also take note that if you become too, addicted to the notion of spirituality, to your belief systems, that's going to do more harm than good. So for you, I think Jupiter is saying you have to retain an open mind and not be too hardcore about your beliefs. Even look at your own past and what's been handed down to you with some scrutiny, and that will help you get through to a new level of understanding and inner peace. You know, folks, not everyone gets a second chance. So I do see this as a chance for me to, change some of those habits of mine. You know, sedentary habits. As an astrologer, you tend to sit there for hours and hours, not getting enough exercise. Going through a lot of stress, especially if you're running a reasonably big website. And even as an astrologer, you make a few false moves, which costs you dearly. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the lack of sleep, that sort of thing, that can take its toll. So what I'd like to say to you is cherish each moment. Don't take it for granted. You've probably heard it before, but when death comes to visit, it tends to shake you up a little bit and give you a bit more of a clarity and practical sense of what's involved. Just like that, it can all disappear in a moment. So cherish it, love it, let the ones you love know that you love them, and above all, please look after yourself. And next month, I promise, I'll be back with each of the 12 star signs when I'm in tip-top shape, which I will be, and I look forward to your company again then. So take care now, and thanks for joining me. Don't forget to visit me at astrology.com.au for the month in focus for your specific star sign. We do have the text-based readings there for you this month, as usual. Bye-bye.